Hi, thanks for being here. I'm in measurement and statistics, and so I of course thought it would be appropriate that we start with an equation. Can we all solve this equation today? My hope is by the end of this little brief talk that we will be able to solve a little bit about this equation. So I thought I'd start with 3 studies. The first study, where you see the double helix here, was a study of high school biology informatics, where teachers were invited to participate in a workshop that was to help do more hands-on laboratory-like learning for the high school students. The high school students would then participate, and then we would find out, did the high school students actually learn the content, and furthermore, were they more engaged and wanting to have more interest in the careers ahead of them? In the second study, so the first study was funded by the NSF, second study funded by the NIH, the toothbrush. So what this study was we brought people into the Pacific Science Center, specifically children grades 3 through 5, and they participated in one of 2 interventions. One of the interventions was a shoot-'em-up game called Dentisha, where the children would actually shoot up cavities. The other game, the control group, was Snow World, where they shot up snowballs. So both of them were first-person shooter games, but our hope was to improve the children's oral hygiene, at least their self-reported self-efficacy and their parent-reported toothbrushing frequencies. That brings us to our third study. The third study was funded by the Institute of Educational Sciences. It's a 2-cohort randomized trial where we took kindergarten English language learner students, all of them. There were 324 in the Seattle area across 24 classrooms, and we randomized them to receive either an early vocabulary intervention or regular classroom instruction. Now remember, these are kindergartners, so we're not expecting them to read whole books at the end of the intervention, but we were hoping to see improvements in letter reading, letter sounds, some listening comprehension, tasks like that. So we see all 3 of these studies. What did they add up to? Well, the very first thing that they add up to is they close the gap. The first study, the double helix, as you will, wants to improve STEM resources and STEM outcomes for students who would normally be underprivileged and not gain access to those sorts of fun curricula. The second study wanted to close gaps for lower income children so that they would improve their oral hygiene. And the third study, of course, was to close the gap in early literacy. Now, I still haven't gotten to my point, really. My point is that all 3 of them use measurement and statistics. That's where I come in. The first study, we had to design a survey instrument from scratch. We went 10 rounds between the grant givers and the other stakeholders and the research team. 10 rounds to create a survey tool. Second study, we had to adapt all adult-level oral hygiene questionnaires and put them into child-friendly format. That was challenging. And there were, I think, 10 measures. And then the third study, we had to create a curriculum-based measure that would be both reliable and turn out some valid scores. All 3 use measurement. All 3 use statistics. I performed all of the statistical analyses for all 3 of these studies. The first was multi-level modeling, where we were looking at teacher gains and whether they correlated with student gains. Second one, well, we wanted to see improvements in the oral health, but we had to control for classroom membership because all of these kids were coming to the Pacific Science Center with their classrooms. Third study, 24 classrooms in the Seattle School District. We had to account for 3 levels of nesting. So in all 3 studies, we had to do sophisticated analyses, and in all 3 studies, we were able to help be part of that closing of the gap. But that still doesn't answer, what is it that I do? I always start in this fashion because that's a good place to start. I actually do number experiments. They're called Monte Carlo simulation studies, where we simulate the world based on what we've seen in the world. We simulate it, and then we see, well, what method actually works better? What method doesn't work as well? The questions that we ask are things like, should I use a multidimensional IRT model to handle differential item functioning? Fun times, I know. In any case, our goal is to improve social policy and better policy making in order to close those gaps that are so important in education. Thank you for your time.